The word Bitcoin is mentioned in a group of people and it's like tossing a lit match into a bucket of gasoline. Everyone has an opinion, but they're rarely the same. Some love it, some hate it, some fear it, and some embrace it. The truth is that Bitcoin, the software, network, and first virtual currency, is something you either understand or you don't. It isn't like other things out there. But what exactly makes Bitcoin so unusual? Is it any different from other virtual currencies? And if so, how? Keep watching to find out what you need to know about the dark side of Bitcoin. You may have heard that Bitcoin is decentralized, but what does that actually mean? Well, in the case of money, decentralization is a system in which no one central authority or government has control over the currency. It's like the Wild West out there. There are no rules, no laws, and no one to turn to if you get into trouble. Plus, since there are no rules, bad actors can take advantage of the system. Bitcoin is a peer-to-peer network, which means each user has a copy of all the transactions that have ever happened with Bitcoin. This is possible due to the fact that all Bitcoin transactions are recorded in a public ledger called blockchain. This means that any Bitcoin user can see the balance and all the transactions of any other user. All of that information is stored on thousands of Bitcoin users' computers around the world. At any given moment, anyone can check the balance of any Bitcoin account, but they can't see who owns that account. They just see a long number, or more commonly, a long string of letters and numbers. The thing about virtual currencies is that they're not backed by any government, central bank, or financial institution. That is to say, you have no one to turn to if your account is hacked, or if the value of your virtual currency suddenly plummets. Bitcoin is particularly vulnerable to sudden drops in value. When the price of Bitcoin first started taking off, people who bought in early made huge profits. But it didn't take long for the excitement to turn into fear. Suddenly, people were worried that Bitcoin was a bubble that would eventually burst. It's impossible to know if Bitcoin will continue to rise or fall, which is why financial experts urge extreme caution. A sudden drop in Bitcoin's value could leave you with nothing. With other currencies, such as the US dollar, you at least know that it's backed by the full faith and credit of the US government. If the government were to suddenly collapse, the value of the dollar would plummet too. But that scenario is very unlikely. First, a word of warning: don't ever invest in anything you don't understand. It's not worth the risk. The particular digital currency you end up choosing could tomorrow be worthless. Or it could be replaced by something better. Bitcoin was the first virtual currency, but there are now lots of others that have come along since. As new technologies emerge and become more sophisticated, it's likely that a better replacement for Bitcoin will come along. The fact that anyone can see the balances of anyone else's virtual currency accounts also makes Bitcoin vulnerable. If someone has complete access to your account and steals your funds, it's difficult to get your money back. Bitcoin is the most widely used virtual currency, but it isn't the only one out there. In fact, there are now more than 2,000 different virtual currencies. Due to this massive proliferation, there are lots of suspicious schemes, fraudsters, and scammers trying to exploit people through cryptocurrencies. If you use Bitcoin or any other virtual currency, plan on losing some of it. No matter how careful you are, you're almost certain to lose some money. This is particularly true if you're using a cryptocurrency that's new and has not yet gained wide public acceptance. The lack of government involvement in Bitcoin means that no taxes are collected on the transactions. This has led to a massive influx of transactions involving cryptocurrencies, which has caused governments around the world to freak out. They're worried that they are losing out on massive amounts of revenue. So they've been slowly but surely enacting laws that bring virtual currency transactions under their control. The United States, Canada, and most European countries have already enacted laws that require people to pay taxes on their cryptocurrency transactions. If you buy a car or a house, the government would assume that it's a transaction involving cash. So they would want you to report and pay taxes on it. But with Bitcoin, no taxes are collected, so there's no way for the government to know what you're doing. This leaves a massive loophole that people could exploit to hide their income from the government. As virtual currencies become more widely used, this loophole will become more obvious, and the government will almost certainly close it. But for now, you can use Bitcoin to hide your transactions from the government and avoid paying taxes. Bitcoin is a revolutionary technology, but it also has some serious flaws. It's a volatile network that's full of fraud and theft. And since no taxes are collected, the government has no way of knowing who's making money with it or how much they're making. On top of all that, Bitcoin is a massive energy hog, as all of those computers must be powered on 24/7. It's not a technological leap forward, but instead a massive waste of energy. As new technologies emerge, it's likely that Bitcoin will be replaced by something better, more stable and less costly to operate. But for now, it remains the most popular virtual currency available.